Leave me alone! She is a betrayal!
Please,
Chicago
don't
woke
say
up
that!
quietly that morning, wrapped in early autumn air and pale sunlight filtering through glass towers and tree-lined streets. For Laura Whitman, the day began like any other, calm, structured, predictable. She rose at exactly 6, prepared her coffee without sugar, and reviewed a short list of meetings on her tablet. There was nothing on her schedule that suggested the world she knew was about to crack open. Laura lived simply for someone worth billions. Her townhouse on the north side was elegant but understated. No flashy cars. No bodyguards hovering nearby. No public appearances. To the outside world, she was merely the wife of a successful corporate executive. Her husband, Daniel Whitman, had built that image carefully. At exactly 7:18 a.m., her phone rang. The name, Daniel, flashed across the screen. Laura answered calmly. "Daniel." His voice sounded strained, breathless, rehearsed. "Laura, I'm at Westbridge Elite Medical Center. Something happened. I don't want you to panic, but there's been a medical emergency." Her fingers tightened slightly around the phone. "Are you hurt?" she asked. There was a pause. "Too long. I'm fine. But I'm here. I just need you to come." Laura stood up slowly, already reaching for her coat. "I'm on my way." She didn't ask questions. She never had. Daniel liked control, liked being the one who knew things first. Over the years, she had learned silence was easier. She arrived at Westbridge Elite Medical Center within 20 minutes. The hospital was one of the most exclusive in Chicago. Glass walls, marble floors, private wings reserved for executives and politicians. Daniel had always spoken highly of it, often boasting about connections that allowed him special privileges. Laura stepped inside and gave her name at reception. "I'm here for Daniel Whitman," she said quietly. The receptionist's smile faltered, just for a second. Her fingers froze above the keyboard. "One moment, Mrs. Whitman." Laura noticed it immediately. She noticed everything. As she waited, she watched the room shift around her. Nurses whispered to one another. A man in an administrator's suit glanced up from his tablet, then quickly looked away. The receptionist returned, her tone suddenly careful. "Please follow me." They walked past the general waiting area and into the private wing. Laura's heels echoed softly against the polished floor. With every step, the tension grew heavier. They stopped outside a VIP room. "Daniel is nearby," the receptionist said, then left abruptly. Laura pushed open the door. The room was empty. No monitors. No patient bed in use. No sign of her husband. Confusion flickered across her face for the first time that morning. She stepped back into the hall just as Daniel appeared from the opposite direction. He was perfectly fine. No hospital gown. No injury. Just Daniel, well-dressed, composed, irritated to see her standing there. "Laura," he said sharply. "You came quickly." "You said there was an emergency," she replied, searching his face. He exhaled, annoyed. "There was a situation. Not with me." Before she could speak, a door across the hall opened. A woman lay inside the VIP suite, young, attractive, pale under soft medical lighting. Her hair spilled across the pillow, and a nurse stood beside her adjusting equipment. The woman's eyes met Laura's. Recognition hit instantly. Megan Brooks, Daniel's assistant. The woman Laura had been told was just a colleague. Time slowed. Laura turned slowly toward her husband. "What is she doing here?" Laura asked. Daniel's jaw tightened. "This isn't what it looks like." But the truth was already written everywhere. On the hospital chart, on the nurse's expression, on the way Daniel positioned himself between Laura and the room. "She had a procedure," Daniel said. "There were complications. I didn't want you worrying." Laura looked back at the woman in the bed, then at the chart hanging at the foot of it. Emergency contact. Laura Whitman. Her name had been used without permission, without respect. The betrayal settled deep, heavy, undeniable. And yet, Laura didn't cry. She didn't scream. She didn't ask another question. Instead, she turned to the nearest nurse. "I'd like to speak to the hospital director," Laura said calmly. Daniel laughed under his breath. "Laura, don't embarrass yourself. This is a private matter." The nurse hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, Mrs. Whitman." That was when Daniel's confidence cracked, just slightly. What he didn't know was that 3 days earlier, a sealed acquisition agreement had been finalized. What he didn't know was that Westbridge Elite Medical Center no longer belonged to the people he thought it did. And what he didn't know was that the woman standing beside him, quiet, composed, underestimated, was not just his wife. She was the billionaire who owned the building they were standing in. The request for the hospital director sent a ripple through Westbridge Elite Medical Center that Laura Whitman could feel immediately. What had been a place of quiet authority and polished confidence suddenly turned brittle. Phones rang more often. Administrators moved faster. Voices dropped into urgent whispers. Daniel noticed it too, though he tried to hide his unease behind irritation. "This is unnecessary," he muttered as they were escorted toward the executive conference wing. "You're turning a personal issue into a public spectacle." Laura didn't respond. She walked beside him with the same calm composure she carried into every boardroom she had ever entered, though Daniel had never seen her in one. They were led into a glass-walled conference room overlooking the city. Within minutes, the hospital director, Dr. Thomas Reynolds, entered, accompanied by 2 senior administrators. His usual confidence was gone. His tie sat crooked. His eyes kept flicking to Laura's face, then to the folder clutched in his hands. "Mrs. Whitman," he said carefully, "thank you for coming." Daniel scoffed. "Doctor, this is a misunderstanding. We can resolve this privately." Dr. Reynolds didn't look at Daniel. Instead, he placed the folder on the table and slowly opened it. "Mrs. Whitman," he said again, this time with clear deference, "as of 3 days ago, Westbridge Elite Medical Center was acquired under a silent ownership transfer by Whitman Capital Group." Daniel froze. Laura folded her hands calmly on the table. "I'm aware," she said. The words landed like a controlled explosion. Daniel laughed once, short, disbelieving. "That's impossible. Laura doesn't." Dr. Reynolds turned the folder so Daniel could see the documents. Ownership contracts. Corporate seals. Laura's signature. Color drained from Daniel's face. This must be a coincidence," he said. "My wife's name." "Is not a coincidence," Laura said quietly. "Whitman Capital Group is mine. Always has been." The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. Dr. Reynolds cleared his throat. "Mrs. Whitman has chosen to remain a private owner. Most of our senior staff were informed only this morning." Daniel's mind raced, grasping for control that was slipping through his fingers. "You're lying," he snapped, turning to Laura. "You never worked. You never." "I didn't need to," she replied. "You mistook my silence for ignorance." She looked at Dr. Reynolds. "I'd like a full report on today's admissions. Especially the VIP patient." Dr. Reynolds nodded quickly. "Of course." Daniel slammed his hand on the table. "You can't do this. This is my hospital. I've donated millions." Laura met his eyes. "You used company funds without authorization. I've already seen the records." Daniel's breathing quickened. Dr. Reynolds spoke carefully. "Mr. Whitman, your access privileges have been suspended pending investigation." "What?" Daniel shouted. "You can't." "I can," Laura said. "And I have." The balance of power shifted completely. Outside the conference room, staff members waited nervously. Inside, Daniel Whitman realized for the first time that the woman he had underestimated for years had been standing above him all along. And this was only the beginning. Daniel Whitman had always believed control was something you could hold on to if you were careful enough, if you spoke with confidence, moved decisively, and never let doubt show on your face. For years, that belief had carried him through boardrooms, social events, and even his marriage. But as he stood in the hallway of Westbridge Elite Medical Center, watching doctors and administrators avoid his eyes, that illusion finally shattered. Only an hour earlier, he had walked these same halls like a man who owned them. Nurses smiled at him. Administrators deferred to him. Doors opened without question. Now, the same corridors felt narrower, colder, stripped of the power he once carried so effortlessly. Laura walked a few steps behind him, calm and composed, her posture unchanged. She was not rushing. She was not angry. That unsettled Daniel more than shouting ever could. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" Laura didn't answer. They stopped outside the VIP recovery suite. Inside, Megan Brooks lay propped up against white pillows, her carefully styled hair slightly disheveled, her makeup faded from hours of anxiety. When she saw Daniel, relief rushed over her face. "Daniel," she breathed. "Thank God. They've been acting so strange. No one will answer my questions." Then she saw Laura. The color drained from Megan's face. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. Megan's eyes darted between them, confusion quickly turning to fear. "Daniel, who is this?" she asked, though deep down she already knew. Laura stepped forward before Daniel could speak. "My name is Laura Whitman," she said evenly. "And I am the reason this hospital feels different today." Megan swallowed hard. I didn't know. Daniel told me." "He told you many things," Laura replied. "Most of them untrue." Daniel stepped between them. "This is between us. Leave her out of it." Laura looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in years, she saw him clearly, not as a husband, not as a partner, but as a man who had mistaken her patience for weakness. "You brought her here using my name," Laura said. "You listed me as an emergency contact without my consent. You exposed me to humiliation so you could protect your lie." Megan's voice trembled. "Daniel, please, say something." Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came. A nurse entered quietly, holding a clipboard. Her expression was professional but firm. "Ms. Brooks," she said, "you'll be transferred to a standard care facility within the hour." "What?" Megan cried. "Daniel, you promised." Daniel turned toward the nurse. "You can't do that. I authorized." "Your authorization has been revoked," the nurse replied calmly. "Per hospital ownership." The word ownership echoed like a hammer. Megan began to cry, her confidence collapsing as reality set in. She reached for Daniel, but he stood frozen, powerless for the first time in his adult life. Laura turned away. "This is over," she said. "For all of us." As security arrived, Daniel was escorted down the hall, past staff who once admired him, past doors that no longer opened for him. Each step stripped away another layer of the life he had built on deception. Outside, the cold Chicago air hit his face like judgment. Daniel Whitman was no longer a man of influence. He was just another man who had lost everything by underestimating the woman beside him. Night fell gently over Chicago, washing the city in amber streetlights and distant reflections from glass towers. Inside Westbridge Elite Medical Center, the chaos had settled. The whispers faded. The urgent phone calls ended. The building returned to the calm efficiency it was designed to project. Laura Whitman stood alone in the executive office overlooking the city. The room was elegant but restrained, dark wood, soft lighting, a long desk that had once belonged to men who believed power needed to be loud to be real. Laura placed her hands on the back of one of the chairs and looked out at the skyline. For a moment, she allowed herself to feel everything she had kept buried for years. The betrayal. The loneliness. The realization that the man she had shared her life with never truly knew her. Her phone buzzed softly. Messages from legal teams, financial advisors, board members requesting guidance. She answered none of them right away. Instead, she sat down and opened a slim folder, the final one. Inside were documents that closed a chapter of her life forever. Divorce papers, asset separation agreements, corporate filings that removed Daniel Whitman from every position he once held. She signed each page with steady hands. No hesitation. No anger. Just clarity. There was a knock at the door. Dr. Thomas Reynolds entered cautiously. "Mrs. Whitman," he said, "I wanted to personally apologize. And to ask, what happens next?" Laura looked up at him, her expression calm but resolute. "You return this hospital to what it was meant to be," she said. "A place for care, not privilege." "And you?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "I disappear again." He nodded, understanding more than she expected. As Laura walked through the hospital one last time, staff members stood straighter, offering respectful nods. No applause. No recognition. Just quiet acknowledgement. Outside, a single car waited. Laura stepped inside and closed the door behind her. As the car pulled away, Westbridge Elite Medical Center faded into the distance, no longer a symbol of betrayal, but of truth revealed. Laura leaned back, watching the city lights pass by. She had not raised her voice. She had not demanded revenge. She had simply let the truth speak. And that was enough. If you enjoy powerful billionaire stories where silence speaks louder than words, make sure you subscribe now. New dramatic stories drop every week. Don't miss the next shocking reveal.